All right, everybody, we are back with the Ramp Careers Daily Update. Once again, I'm joined with the co-founders, our crew, co-founders of Ramp Careers, Mitch and Manoj. Gentlemen, always good to be with you. How are you doing today?
Doing well, Danny.
Doing great.
Wonderful. So we want to chat about a bit of a roundtable discussion today on the future of remote work. It's something we're all facing with the COVID crisis. But before we jump into that, there was an article that came out today that said that Amazon is hiring 1,750 employees in Louisville and Indiana. Man, they are just throwing their weight around these days in this crisis. They seem to be thriving, guys. What do you think?
Makes sense, man. I buy all my stuff on Amazon. I mean, I'm constantly on their website. The only thing that I'm sure they'll catch up to it is I have like 6 others in my family that also share my account. So there's also that.
Yeah, you gotta upgrade to the family version. I'm not surprised. What type of roles are they? Are they opening like a new plant there, basically?
That's right. Service center jobs, and great. Honestly, they're hiring folks in cities that may have been struggling before, and they're able to start employing people again, which is a great sign. I love seeing that. If the whole world ends up working for Amazon, as long as we're all employed after this, I think that's not the worst thing in the world. I mean, it may be a little monotonous, but not too shabby.
I mean, it's killer, right? $15 minimum wage. That's great. Up to almost like $18 per hour. Like that's solid pay for sure for that area for some of these folks. It seems like eventually maybe some of these jobs disappear though as things get more and more automated. So it's kind of like inflating the area, and then I don't know, maybe they go away in the not so distant future. That could be tough, kind of like swing for this area. But 1,500 jobs, like it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty solid. So switching gears off of that positive news, I want to talk about the future of remote work. So all three of us obviously are salespeople at heart. We've done this for 3 decades combined. And I'm curious to know what the future of remote work looks like. Obviously, COVID is here, and it's not going away anytime soon. But what does that mean for how we work, collaborate? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's been an interesting 7 months for me being in one place, having a setup at home. I've always enjoyed that in-person connection, and I think in many ways I've learned how to adapt. There are some common themes that looking back, I've found have changed for me. One, and I know it doesn't make sense in a scientific way, but I have more hours in a day. And I think that's stemming from, one, me not having to travel, me not having to, not being able to do things that I used to do before. So going out and eating, I think all of that socializing was a time thing. It's kind of sad that I'm not able to do it, but it's unlocked a lot more hours in my day. And so I've been able to produce more, Danny. Quite honestly, I feel like the 3 of us would not have been able to even do this if we were to do this in person. We'd have to find our way to the office and set up a room and socialize a little bit, right? And so that's been a very good thing. The tougher part is that I find a harder balance between home life and work life. And Danny, I know you have a young one at home, and you're at home, right? And so it's very difficult to kind of draw that line. And so I've been, forced to blend those two things a lot more. I have been on the other end of a sales call where I've seen, someone that's trying to pitch a product, have their kid walk into the room. And I think it's all normal now. What used to be unacceptable, unprofessional is normal. I think dress codes have relaxed quite significantly. I am mostly in boxers. I would never stand up right now or in most calls. And, I may look one way, first half of my body, and then just this boxers and comfortable stuff. And I think that a lot of people are probably doing that. And it does have an impact on, a good impact, I think, on the work that I produce, because I feel comfortable, right? I feel at home. So all in all, more hours, ability to be more productive, a little more taxing on personal life. I think people have to draw very firm boundaries, and folks have to be more understanding of somebody else on the other line. And then I think that there's something to be said about being comfortable, working in a way that's most comfortable for you. There's no, annoying coworker whose voice you don't want to hear, or someone gabbing on the phone in the back, right? It's a quiet space. And so those are my general kind of broad observations. What do you think? I mean, from a from a more tactical sales perspective, what do you think has changed?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I've seen a lot of ways. I think there's a lot of pros and cons. So the pros, I would say, I agree with you. I used to spend 45 minutes to an hour getting from where I live now in San Mateo up to San Francisco to go to different workspaces, go to visit clients, whatnot. And that's a good 2 hours of my day every day that I'm just sitting in an Uber. So that's gone. I have those 2 hours back. The other side of it is, in a small 2-bedroom apartment, one of the bedrooms, which is taken up by my new son, well, not so new, 10-month-old son. It's difficult and challenging to find the space, even here, to work. So I'm generally in my bedroom, sometimes at the kitchen table, and the background noise is often a child, and there's not much I can do about it. It's put them in a room and leave them there. I wouldn't want to do that. So it's taxing in ways. And the other side of it is, hey, I could walk out of the room at any time and see my son, and I've got to develop a really cool relationship with him over the last 10 months also. So a lot of pros and cons in terms of remote work. And I think on the sales side, it's interesting. It leaves a lot of room to be creative on not only the sales call, because we're all over Zoom, so a lot of virtual engagement, but the prospecting. So video-based prospecting, gone are the days where you're going to go give this formal big presentation in person. Does that stay? I don't know. If COVID lasts for the next 12 months, do we see this kind of be a full-time shift and we never go back to offices or in-person meetings or even coffee meetings? Is it sort of temporary space that we can meet up from time to time and generally remote work? Or I don't know. These are all unanswered questions. And then you think about the physical space in your house. So are people going to carve out an office in their homes now? Are people going to convert a garage into an office and have a back house almost for work, and then a house for their home activities? I don't know. These are all things that I'm thinking about as we enter this next phase of, the pandemic is here. Where does it go?
My living room's a lot cleaner now. I mean, I feel like I'm forced to, because you have to be a lot more presentable. But Mitch, this is a question for you. That you and I, enjoyed doing the socializing with prospects, especially the ones that were larger size deals. We would often find opportunities to connect with them, get lunch with them. We've flown out to meet them. And listen, at the end of the day, people buy because they have a need, and people buy because your product or service meets that need. But I would be lying if we said that all of that socializing didn't help lubricate the sales process a little bit. What do you think is going to happen? Is it now like the Sendosos of the world? Like what's the replacement? Prospects must be feeling a little bit unattended to.
A little hungry, right? No more steak dinners. They're starving. I agree completely. I'm thinking about it from two lenses. One, the prospecting lens, and then two, the actual selling motion. So from a prospecting point of view, I think it is, it's gotten easier and harder. There's pros, cons. So it's definitely harder because people are at home, and all the phone numbers still go to the office lines, right? So it's harder to cold call folks. We haven't adopted yet to everyone just having their cell phone, I guess, in their email signature line. That's gotten harder. I think in some ways, everyone's a little bit more relaxed though. Like you said, people are dressing more casually. The actual relationship between folks in a conversation is a little bit more casual. So I think people are also a little bit more open to hearing a salesperson out. Maybe it's because they have a little bit more free time. Maybe it's because they're bored at home and now Netflix shows to watch. I don't know. But it seems like if you catch them at the right time, they're a little bit more open. From a selling motion, especially enterprise sales, it's been an adjustment, right? You can't get in front of them for a presentation. You can't do your typical song and dance over a dinner or a lunch, even a coffee, which a lot of folks are still used to in a real, field sales role. I took it for granted being in New York and San Francisco, being able to drive and see my customers, drive and see my prospects. And that personal touch goes a long ways. It's a way to differentiate yourself. So I think you're right. We're seeing more of the Sendosa type model. We're seeing gift cards go out. We're seeing virtual lunches happen. A lot of virtual networking happen. Those type of events are becoming more popular. And I think it's here to stay. I think there's a lot of companies, not just tech, but financial services companies, the accounting companies of the world, the banking companies of the world. They're going to say, we don't need these 1,000 seats in the office anymore downtown. Yeah. It's clear that these folks can work from home for now. Yeah. And maybe they don't even need to be on site with the client 5 days out of the week. Maybe, it's fine for them to take some of these calls remotely. So there's going to be an interesting shift in how we actually sell. I think in some ways it's for the positive. Like Danny said, like you're having more meaningful relationships with your family. You're not on the road every single day. You're not commuting every single day. I think all those are positives, but it's definitely going to be an interesting adjustment.
Curious to know your take on one thing, because you mentioned it, and it's been on my mind since the start of this, and it's a hot button issue, and it's been on the decline, I think, for a while. But is cold calling dead now? Because what I'm seeing is when I get a call on my phone, two things happen. One, it's either labeled as spam risk and I don't pick up, or two, it's a number I don't know and I don't pick up. So I'm curious to know, like, are people actually trying to cold call? And if so, is it effective, or is it just gone? Is this the killer?
COVID killed phone calls for sure. No, I don't know. I don't know if it's dead or not. I think it always play a part. I think even leaving a voicemail is a good touch point, right? It creates that, at least leaves some recognition in the prospect's head. But we're seeing a lot more creative messaging come on through LinkedIn recently, which is interesting. I think it's going to get saturated pretty quickly though, and people are going to catch on to what's spam on LinkedIn as well. I don't know. Is it dead? It's just too early to tell.
It's TBD for me too. I think we need more time to figure it out. But I know right now when people call me on my cell phone and it's a spam call and I'm already at home, it's already a little hectic, or they call me in the middle of a meeting, I'm just like, oh God, just be done. Don't call my cell phone.
Yeah, I got one the other day. I think I naturally have a soft spot for cold callers. So if they come off polished, I'll hear them out for a minute or two, just to one, see how their pitch is and see what I can learn. And then two, give them like a little satisfaction and let them down easily.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so we've got cold calling down. How about team collaboration? So what I think could be interesting in the future is virtual rooms. So where you're actually, if you want to say hologram, that's not what I mean by it, but you're VR'd into a specific meeting room and you're actually looking to the left, looking to the right. Maybe you have a Oculus headset on, maybe you don't, and you see your coworkers there, but you're not actually physically there. Is that something that's interesting? Is that feasible? Are we too far away from that? Or is that where we're going?
Absolutely. I don't think it's that far away. Like, I think you could see that next 18, 24 months, at least, like to some degree, right? I mean, it's not crazy on far out in the horizon. And I think it would definitely be feasible if done correctly. I think for the time being, Manoj is right. Like, you're losing that interaction with your coworkers. How do you handle like internal politics? How do you handle promotions and putting your best foot forward in the office setting? All of that becomes a little bit more difficult, just communicating over email and just interacting with like the one person you talk to that day. No one sees your effort that you're putting in. Luckily in sales, your effort shows up through sales. So in Salesforce, in your CRM, if you're closing deals, you're at the top of the leaderboard, people are going to see that, but they don't get to actually interact with you, which I think is a definite con. So yeah, maybe virtual VR, virtual offices helps with that.
Yeah, I mean, what do you both think about looking at it from a slightly different perspective? In some ways, do you think that this whole remote, you can work from anywhere, live anywhere, do you think that would help maybe open access up a little bit?
I think it will. I think that's a good point. I think it will, with the caveat being, as long as you are available to call during the prospect's calling hours, I don't think it will matter anymore where you're physically located. I think the counterpoint there is salespeople and sales teams do like to be in that one big room with all the noise and the commotion. There's a lot of team building and bonding and camaraderie that comes on a sales floor that you will certainly miss. But with this remote work environment, I don't see there being a reason for a manager or a VP to say, hey, look, you're not a good fit for the team because you're not here. It's really, if you put your numbers up, you can probably be anywhere. And I don't see that going away anytime sooner, if not forever. So the answer is probably yes, Manoj. I think it should open access up. It should open access up to diverse candidates, and it should also open access up to folks that maybe have a bunch of stuff during the day or at certain blocks of the day and couldn't otherwise be salespeople, and now they can because you can work from anywhere.
Do you think we'll start seeing people have taking on additional jobs more frequently, right? Like if you were a salesperson at Salesforce, why could you also not be selling for HubSpot? selling both CRMs, contract role. You work from home. You don't have to be in the office. Like obviously there's non-competes and there'd be like rules in place, but is that a model where you have like a sales for hire down the road?
Yeah.
And you get, I mean, there's like a training aspect to it that's difficult, but you almost like a contractor for these companies.
I think honestly, I think it just comes back to what sales is fundamentally about. And that's, if you hit your numbers, you're a performer, right? So if you can do that in a short block of time while working remotely, and you don't really have any other responsibilities or obligations to the company, yeah, go join Fiverr and be a graphic designer on the side, or perhaps you could code for somebody if you have the bandwidth, or we could see these mixes of crazy careers, right? If you're a part-time comedian and you're doing virtual comedy sessions, you could apply that to sales and now do comic videos to get people engaged. I think there's so many. I think this opens up so many avenues for folks that have everybody is multifaceted. So people who have multifaceted interests and are not just one track professional careers, they can kind of blend these two together. And I think we'll see really cool blends of professions going forward 5-10 years out, where it's instead of the old Hollywood, actor, director, writer, producer, waiter, you can comedian, salesperson, or you could be a graphic designer who also codes and account manages on site. Yeah, exactly. Last thing I want to talk about before we head out for the day, and it may be a little controversial, but the office politics. So there's no more office. So how do office politics work? What's the career promotion plan look like? And are those two mixed anymore? Are they totally decoupled like they should be?
I agree with you. I mean, I love myself a bit of controversy, but yeah, I mean, where is going to be the room for office politics? I guess you could still develop a liking. The reality is that even when you were in person, decisions should be made as a function of results, right? I mean, CRMs, leaderboards, whether you are working physically or fully online, that doesn't change. You see less of people. I think there's going to be fewer opportunities for people to form little bonds and little packs, but it's not going to change, man. I think people fundamentally may be who they are, and I don't think that we're necessarily an efficient species. I think that as much as we don't want to, and as much as we should make data-driven decisions, I do believe that we're susceptible to biases. We're all susceptible to feeling as opposed to thinking. I think that'll continue to exist to some extent. The magnitude might drop because there's not enough opportunities for folks to interact and gang up or develop thoughts that are based not on facts, but it'll still exist. I mean, people are always going to find ways of liking others or making biased decisions. That's not gonna change, but hopefully it'll be a little less.
So maybe the data plays a more important role, is what I'm hearing you say, right? Because if you don't have, I mean, it cuts both ways. What if you have an amazing seller that's crushing it every day of the week, but he or she is a complete jerk and works terribly with a team?
Yeah.
Versus somebody who's selling a little, isn't selling as much, but they're a team player, they're super motivated, they're like a super motivator. They put the company first on every occasion. Like, how do you reconcile who gets the promotion?
Yeah,
right?
Listen. Yeah, there's two schools of thought. I've read online posts, and I fall in the latter category, right? I don't think that you should be a jerk, regardless of your outcome. It's bad for the morale of everybody else, and the marginal benefit that you get from a high-performing jerk vastly, undermines the benefit of having a cohesive team that collectively produces good results. And companies are built on multiple people; they're never built on one person. But with that said, there's always people will continue to make biased decisions. Like, I am a firm believer in that, and it's not me not being hopeful about humanity. I think we'll make change slowly, but there's going to be politics, man. I mean, I think there'd be more monitored politics, because where are you going to talk smack if you're on Slack? Everything's recorded. I mean, for everyone listening, especially young salespeople, I see people making these like small Slack channels that they all name random stuff. Like, don't. It's not a good idea. Slack's not your personal text message. Like, you shouldn't. Everything that's said in there if you wouldn't say that in a public setting, and quite honestly, if there's stuff that you wouldn't say in a public setting, you shouldn't say it, period, because you're probably embarrassed of it. And it's probably mean, but it's going to exist. Yeah.
I think you're right there. It's going to exist. It will probably be muted because you don't have that pull your manager aside, develop a personal relationship, try to get them to like you a little bit more, and work your way up the corporate ladder with backdoor conversations. I just don't see that. You don't have that opportunity to do it in person. But yes, people will get creative. I'm like you. It's not that I'm not hopeful. I just think you can still have phone calls, and there probably will be some pandering on Slack from time to time in DMs, even though that certainly shouldn't happen. I've been on the other side where I've seen, I don't know if it's Slack messages, but direct messages of folks as a manager that ended up getting them fired. So I strongly encourage folks not to bring personal information onto Slack. All right. Well, this was great, guys. Great discussion today on the future of remote work, and lots of things that we unpacked, and we'll figure out what actually happens, I'm sure, over the next 6 to 12 months. But for Mitch and Manoj, I'm Danny, and we will see you tomorrow on another Ramp Careers Daily Update. See you guys.
You guys.